Man, college essays and exams are really kicking my butt right now. I need to wind down and relax for a bit. I know, why not binge 50 games for a video no one's gonna watch? Do I ever learn? A few months ago, one of my friends mentioned to me this cool game that he describes as Action 52 if it was good, and the moment he said that, I knew I needed to check this out. I am a huge retro game fan, and this sounded right up my alley. I decided to get it for myself and make a video on it because I'm a workaholic who cannot control himself. So here it is. We're binging UFO 50. Let's not beat around the bush here with a long intro. I will be talking about these games in order and will rank them at the end from worst to best. I know some reviewers will only play some of the games for like 3 milliseconds and come out with a review, so I'm not gonna do that here. I can't beat all these games though, guys. I have a family, okay? I have college essays. I don't have the time for this. Please help me. Call me a contrarian, but I have to say this. Barbuta might be the best game in the whole collection. That's right. I said it. This clunky, annoying, cryptic game is one of the best. The jumping sucks. There's literally no music and it will continually screw you over time and time again. Plus these sound effects make me want to go insane. You can call me a masochist, but I love all of it. Barbuta is unironically not just a game, it's a mindset. Barbuta requires patience, enlightenment, sheer willpower. It's not all that hard, it's just frustrating. I wasn't expecting a game like this to captivate me so early on. In all honesty, the only reason why I bought this collection was for a few RPGs and the one idle game that appears later on, but I won't talk about that yet. So if the rest of the collection is as good as Barbuta, then this video is gonna be so fun to make. Most of the gameplay is gonna consist of you bumbling around this labyrinthine maze. But if you know what you're doing, it shouldn't take more than 15 minutes to beat. But you know, you obviously don't know what you're doing, so it's gonna take like a few hours probably. Almost all of the areas are completely optional. You can just head straight for the final boss and beat his ass. It's also shockingly one of the easier games on here despite being so archaic in nature. The beginning gives off a bad first impression with this trap right here, but it's not nearly as hard as it lets on. I came in expecting to prefer the longer games with save points and world maps and stuff, but I honestly found myself preferring the arcadey games, which is unusual for me. I think this might be my gamer awakening. God, that was cringe. Just move on to the next game, please. Oh my god. Guys, I don't like puzzle games that much. If I wanted to use my brain, I'd be studying for my SATs, which I am dangerously behind on. Oh my gosh, why am I making this video instead of studying for my extremely important exam? Remember to like and subscribe because I am putting my future and family legacy in jeopardy for a dumb video no one will watch. I don't know, man. I couldn't get super into it, but that doesn't mean it was bad. It's very unique, and I haven't seen anything too similar to it before. You just kill these bugs, unlock new moves, and kill more bugs before they overrun the place. The gameplay loop is really good, and I never got bored playing it. It's randomly generated, and the bugs evolve when your turn ends, which yes, it is turn-based, my favorite thing. There are elevated tiles, explosions, coins. Man, this game has everything. A simple gameplay loop with a shocking amount of death. Of course, it gets progressively harder, but after you've got things figured out, it's not that much of a pain. Not bad at all, but not my thing. Bottom of the list. And by that, I mean under Barbuta. It's not even close to the worst. The obligatory side-scroller slash platformer slash shoot-em-up. I know exactly what this is paying homage to. This game made me realize that the games in UFO 50 aren't going to be nearly as hard as the games they're based on. Yes, they can still get really freaking hard at points, more on that later, but generally, they're more digestible versions of pre-existing stuff, with their own added flair of course. This isn't an install at all. I appreciate how it respects your time while also remaining difficult. I mean, when I first booted up Barbuta, I was expecting an anger-inducing, ghosts and goblins type experience. I'm so glad I never had to play something like that here. It's actually quite short, but if you want to fully complete it, you'll be here a while. Thank God I didn't promise to 100% this game. I would have hated myself for making that promise. And you would have hated me because I would have bailed out on that shit. This one is more frustrating than hard. You see, my dumbass keeps making simple mistakes. Nope, I call BS there. There are different areas, and each one has its own strategy that you need to follow. Of course, putting these strategies into action is easier said than done. Will you hide at the top of the map the entire time from enemies? Well, too bad, because they're gonna actively rain on your parade and shut that down real quick. If you stay at the bottom though, there's a more likely chance of falling into the void. Plus, all the really beefy enemies are down there, and they're a hassle to kill. It's pretty easy once you get the patterns down though. The biggest threat I had to face once I got used to the enemy patterns was my own stupidity. Plus, the boss at the end is super easy too. Ironically, the easiest part of the game. I know after you beat the boss, there's an even harder version, but the game counts killing the squid as beating the game. I'm not here to 100% anything, okay? I'm gonna do that on my own time, or never. preferably never. Being the third game, it's pretty basic, but still fun and very satisfying. Plus, the music slaps. Lodged between Bug Hunter at number 3 and Barbuta at number 1. Middle of the list. For now. I like this one a lot more than I thought I would. I originally wasn't planning on beating it and just kind of brushed it off, but I ended up really loving it. See, you play as this race car and have to color the ground a certain amount of times while these guys try to paint it red. There are boost pads, spikes, projectiles, and a bunch of other stuff. I like how whenever the game wants to teach you a new mechanic, it has this cute little animation showing you how to overcome it. It was honestly pretty easy, and I had a lot of fun playing with it. It's odd, because I really am not a huge fan of arcade games, as opposed to the ones with progression I'm more accustomed to. Again, it's really simple, so I don't have to say much at all. Very fun and charming. Middle of the list. Magic Garden, another simple little arcadey one. To actually beat this one, you need to get 200 points, and to get points, you need to line these little blob guys up on these tiles and drop them off there. It seems simple, but it can get really stressful and time consuming. Luckily though, I locked the heck in and beat it in around 42 minutes. It seems like a Herculean task, which yeah, it kind of is, but if you just focus, it won't be too bad. To be fair though, it takes a lot of time to actually get to 200, since each of these blob guys are only worth 1 point. Though, more do tend to spawn the farther you progress. It was pretty simple, but I enjoyed it. The atmosphere for this one is top notch as well. I absolutely adore the theme that plays when you die. That kind of sounds morbid, but just trust me on this, okay? You see, even when I was as young as 5, I would love playing those retro arcade games. The music would captivate me every time, and those jingles always stuck with me, man. So much nostalgia, man. Also, I'd like to note that when playing the games chronologically, they become more and more advanced and impressive, since it does kind of roleplay as a collection with games that existed in that universe. And also, I thought it just spanned like one fictional console, but apparently it spans multiple, which is cool. So it's only up from here, boys. Hopefully. This one is going near the middle of the list. Good, but simple. Mortol. An absolutely iconic one right here. In this one, you play as this guy who can die a lot. And each time he perishes, he leaves behind something that can help you in the game. He can explode himself to kill enemies or destroy obstacles, turn himself into stone and help you cross spikes or reach higher areas, stick his head into the wall so you can use his corpse as a platform, or just drown, or fall flat. Riveting. This is a puzzle platformer, which I don't play much of those at all. I already hate puzzle games, I don't need those in my platformers. I kid. But I just wasn't captivated at all by this one. Guys, trust me, I don't hate puzzle games. There are some ones later on that I love. I'm just not particularly fond of this one. The personality, compared to the ones I played previously, isn't really present here. The music is kind of forgettable, the setting as well, and I really like the mechanic and think it's cool, but I just couldn't find a reason to keep playing. I didn't quit because it was hard, it was just kind of dull, and I had no incentive to keep going, honestly. I know a lot of people like this one, but I'm just not crazy on it. What I said sounds negative, but I still really like it. I'll probably beat it on my own time, but playing it for the video just wasn't fun. Hopefully the later sequel will fare much better. Bottom of the list. It's still good, but I'd be totally fine never playing it again. This one isn't too hard, but it's extremely stressful. It's probably taken years off my life already. Time absolutely flies by when playing this one, and you never realize how little progress you've made until you actually look at your playtime. I had 2 hours in this game before I even saw level 3, which there are 4 levels with a total of 120 floors. It is a Herculean task to beat this one, let alone 100% it. To 100% it, you need these keys and all this other BS. It's just a hassle. I'm not doing that. I suck so much at this, like seriously, so much at this one. I never got overtly mad playing it, but that's probably because I wasn't binging the game frivolously yet. This one requires a lot of precision and good reaction time. In fact, when talking about it, it doesn't actually seem that bad, but actually playing it, I felt tensed as hell. One wrong move, and you have to restart all over again. This one definitely has that good old NES difficulty, for those who may have been disappointed by how easy the previous ones were. You can buy upgrades, but I genuinely still feel extremely vulnerable, even after buying them. I never felt like the game got easier whenever I got these upgrades. In fact, you need to collect these coins to actually buy them, and at some points, actually getting the coins makes the games harder if you're actively seeking them out. Also, they can all be lost when you die, since power-ups don't carry over. Not much to say about this one. It's good, but very, very stressful. I was shocked to see how disliked this one is by certain people. I think it's decent, but nothing special. It's number 5 on the list right now, above Bug Hunter, but below Paint Chase. Planet Zoldath. This one is really unique. I was expecting a clunky, top-down dungeon crawler set on a mysterious planet. Instead, I got a treasure hunt where the enemies are merely an afterthought, which isn't a complaint. I must admit, it's unique. You can't just kill your way through everything. In fact, it requires diplomacy, making sure to trade with these alien guys and not piss them off. My only complaint is I can never tell when they're good or evil because they're always randomized. Actually, it's not my only complaint. The game is sort of grindy. It's not crazy time-consuming or anything, but if you want to trade for the items you need, you gotta get a lot of a certain thing, and actually acquiring that certain thing can be very tedious. It doesn't help that you can only carry 2 items at once, so you need to swap which ones you're carrying very frequently. There's also a bit of RNG since the world is auto-generated. I've heard some people say the auto-generated world absolutely screwed them over and made it almost impossible for them to beat it. It is very slow-paced, and sometimes I just stop caring halfway through and start becoming reckless. Once you get accustomed to the game, you realize how tiny it actually is, which makes it both more and less motivating to finish. It boils down to collecting stuff, to collect more stuff, to collect even more stuff. Depending on who you are, this sounds bad, but I wasn't bothered by it. Overall, I'm pretty neutral on Planet Zoldath. No strong feelings. I can appreciate it for what it is. The great thing about UFO 50 is that there's so much variety, and I truly believe Planet Zoldath deserves its spot in the game, going near the bottom of the list. Still very enjoyable. Above Mortol, but below Bug Hunter. Attactics is Clash Royale, but somehow better. I don't know why I say somehow. Clash Royale sucks now. I don't play it anymore because it's bad. I had a Clash Royale phase back in freshman year, so you already know I was a pro at this. It's actually super fun, and I wasn't expecting to beat it, but I did. You see, there are 24 scenarios, and each scenario has you and your opponent with different loadouts and modifiers. There is no mana system. Instead, you and your opponent spawn troops at the same time. Although very often, your opponent will have a buff that gives them more troops than you. The most egregious case of this being the final level, where they have an 80% extra troop modifier. It sounds extremely unmanageable, and trust me, it is. I have no idea how my dumbass beat this. I love strategy games, and more are going to come up eventually, so I'll definitely be ranking those highly. For this one, you can sink a lot of hours into it and come out completely satisfied. Again, I didn't buy UFO 50 for these types of games, so I'm shocked at how much I'm enjoying them. Different units do different things. The soldiers are just regular soldiers, but they can occasionally parry when they're angry. They just seem to get angry at random. I don't know if there's something I need to do to trigger it, but it just happens. Cavalry goes forward 2 spaces instead of 1. Lances can hit 2 enemies at once and are really good against shields. Shields are good for stalling, especially from archers. Archers are just archers. They shoot from afar. What can I say? Crackheads, I mean demolitionists, explode upon death, killing both enemies and allies within the vicinity. Heroes are just better lances with more health, and they also look kinda badass. And thieves can attack both vertically and horizontally. All of them achieve a balance that makes the game more dynamic than you'd expect. It was really fun, and I'm definitely playing more after this video. Attactics is going near the top. For now. Below Barbuta, but above Ninpek. Devilition. Another puzzle game, and it's grid-based too. Wow, my favorite thing. I couldn't get into this one either, please, I'm sorry. I really like the sound effects for this one, but man, I am uncovering my absolute apathy towards puzzle games. No, I don't even dislike puzzle games, just ones that are grid-based like this. This one has you set up chain reactions to kill demons terrorizing the townspeople. You kinda sorta need good memory, since you need to know what sets off what and what creature you want to start the reaction with. If you kill all the demons in one turn, you also gain a townsperson. And to win a round, you need less demons than townspeople to go on to the next. It's not even that I couldn't figure it out, I just wasn't interested at all. My morale while playing this game was so low that I just didn't have the willpower to continue. Again, it's not bad, and I know it's someone's thing, but it's just not mine. Probably my least favorite so far. This might be at least one person's favorite game of all time, so I'm sorry to that guy out there, okay? I'll make it up to you, man, but for now, lowest on the list. Kick Club. When looking at the promos for UFO 50 for the first time, I immediately saw this one and thought to myself, hey, that's just Bubble Bobble. You know, that one really addictive arcade game that everybody remembers for some reason. And yeah, I definitely see the resemblance. Even the collectibles are similar. This one has 4 worlds, and just like Ninpek, my biggest threat was my own stupidity. I would have legendary runs that would end because I died 5 times in the same spot. Plus, World 4 is exceedingly difficult. The rest are quite easy, but can catch you off guard. I also really like this one, especially the aesthetic. It definitely stands out to me. I don't even need to explain my gameplay, just watch the footage. It's pretty easy until World 4, which is a challenge. And when you die, you have to start all over again. I quite like this one for what it is, and it's going near the top of the list, though I can imagine it won't stay there for long. Avianos is easily my favorite one so far. I take back what I said about Barbuta. I really love the Civilization series, and this one is kinda akin to that. You build up an army and capture these forts while also constructing buildings to generate resources to make your army even more formidable, and whoever controls 4 forts and is able to hold them for 2 turns wins. When I first started making this video, I saw this game and immediately noped the heck out, expecting to hate it when I eventually got to it. But no, I freaking love this one. It's so intense at points, and I love seeing these little birdies fight over useless plots of land. I had an approach where I would build the heck out of my resources while staying a recluse, and eventually brute force my way through victory. This sounds fun and all, but you still need troops to defend your castles, otherwise the enemy can take them willy-nilly. You also can't see how big your opponent's armies are, so you need to calculate how to allocate your troops. Having one large army isn't going to cut it, since the CPU can blast through terrain and strike multiple forts if they want. I eventually had to engage in guerrilla warfare near the end, and made several extremely risky but thought out predictions to capture fortifications. Predicting where the enemy is headed or how many troops will be stationed in a certain area is vital. Plus, building up too much infrastructure can be detrimental, as the enemy can raise it down, wasting precious points. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. There are these points you can acquire from conquering certain terrain or praying to these dinosaur gods, each serving a different purpose. If the enemy ends up going for an offensive attack on you, you can either hold. Holding works best when you're defending a castle, although it can be detrimental depending on what troops you have or what your opponent has. You can also flee, which stops your troops from getting wiped, but gives the land to your enemy. And yeah, if a troop dies in battle, they're gone permanently until you purchase another one. And you can also raise, which is good if you know the enemy has the force to take a province. You destroy your own infrastructure to make sure they don't benefit from what you yourself built. There are so many playstyles you can go for, and I love how dynamic everything is. I genuinely love this one, and there's so much more I could talk about, but I don't want this game to steal the thunder of any others I'm going to talk about later. See, I do like puzzle games. Well, this is a strategy game, but whatever, man. Top of the list. I love everything about this one. Oh, and the cutscenes for this are great. 10 out of 10. Mooncat is friggin' awesome. I don't know what the hell they were thinking when making this, but everything about it is so surreal. The atmosphere, the music, the controls. Yeah, the controls are weird and clunky as hell. When you see my footage, it kinda looks like I'm trash at the game, but just trust me, the controls are so weird. I mean, it makes sense. It is technically a sequel to Barbuta. You see? This doesn't control like a regular game. All the buttons on the D-pad have the same purpose in making you walk left, while buttons X, Y, A, and B also serve the same purpose in making you walk right. You can also ground pound and do this slide. The slide I barely did, but ground pounding is integral as it's your main attack. When you get hit, you just go back to the start of the room that you spawned in, and its difficulty mainly comes from the controls. You get used to them quickly, but the ground pound is tricky to get the hang of. Plus, I learned that this simply isn't a linear game. In fact, it has tons of secrets and multiple final bosses. There are different hidden areas and routes to take, all with different outcomes. At first glance, it's pretty short. I mean, I only beat it in 44 minutes. Then I realized I only explored half the game. There are a bunch of hidden cryptic things you probably won't even get to without a guide. I mean, I literally saw a guy beat this in 2 minutes glitchless. This one's going near the top, probably below Kid Club. In Bushido Ball, Raizo is broken. Oh, I should probably introduce you to the game first. Hold on. This is Bushido Ball, a back-and-forth ball game set in most likely the later parts of the Edo period of Japan. There are 6 characters to choose from, and you go against 5 of them in a championship. Whoever scores 8 points first wins. There are 6 characters to choose from, each of them having their own special attacks and moves, and there are also different stats for each character. I first played this girl, who's really fast and can throw these things, but I heard Raizo was overpowered, and it definitely felt like that trying to fight him. I lost like 20 times against him, so I decided to play as him, and oh my gosh, he is so freaking broken. He's way too easy and destroys all of his opponents super quickly. He wasn't fun to play as or fight against, which is a shame. I really do love the aesthetic for this one though. The music, sound effects, and thick outlines give this one a distinct look from the others. It's pretty short if you're not ass like me, and looks pretty easy to cherry as well. Although I'm not going to do it because pain. I was getting uncharacteristically aggravated trying to beat this one. I mean, it wasn't even that hard. It's probably because I was playing this at like 3 AM and already had been deprived of sleep. Please guys, I have to study every waking hour of my life. This is the only free time I get, and I'm still in tremendous pain. If this is what adulthood feels like, then I'd be fine being a NEET for the rest of my life. I rate this game an adulthood out of 10. This one is lower on the list, but not bad. It says a lot about UFO 50 when even the solid games are near the bottom. 50 levels. Block Koala has 50 freaking levels. And you guys are lucky I even completed one of them, because oh boy, it's another puzzle game. This is actually my favorite puzzle game in the collection so far, but it's only alright in my opinion. I don't understand puzzle game culture at all. All my friends look at me like I'm crazy when I say I don't like puzzle games. They go and put a thing in a thing for 1000 levels until they have to buy an expansion to unlock more levels that are also boring. This is not hyperbole, by the way. My friend spent $15 playing this useless game on his iPhone. This game in particular is the longest in the collection, depending on how good you are at puzzle games. At first, it seemed like an absolutely insane feat to finish this, especially since I got stuck on the first level. But I realized how the mechanics actually worked and it was pretty easy. Although I do have to admit, this game does not do a good job at teaching you the mechanics. Unlike Camouflage, which is the next game I'll be talking about, the puzzles here never really made my brain hurt. At worst, they were just kinda tedious. I find puzzle games to be like doing your taxes. It's novel at first, but eventually the fun wears off real quick. You know what? This analogy is cancelled. I actually like doing my taxes, except for when half my income just disappears. That sucks. I'm sorry, I couldn't get through this one, man. Genuinely, I tried, but every time I booted up a new level, my eyes felt heavier and heavier. Legitimately, I wanted to fall asleep. It doesn't seem like this one is that well liked either. It's not particularly disliked, but most people I've seen express some apathy towards it. It doesn't help that it's preceded by a much better puzzle game. That game being Camouflage is my favorite puzzle game in the whole collection. I wouldn't say it's that hard though, unless you aim to get the extra collectibles, but even then it's still manageable. You play as this chameleon who changes colors to avoid predators, these frogs, and these moving beasts. Each level feels like it's gonna be daunting, but you soon realize what to do, and it becomes so satisfying to play. The aesthetic of this one adds so much to it. I adore the music and the sound effects here. The world map is awesome too. It's unnecessary, but I can't help but be mesmerized by its music. In general though, the game doesn't really have that much to it, and it's quite short. I don't have too much to say, as I liked it and beat it in around one sitting. Very fun and charming, near the top, which is impressive since it is a puzzle game after all. Campanella is scary. Probably the scariest game I have ever played. Not scary in terms of the contents of the game itself, but its difficulty. Now, the Campanella series is essentially the poster child of UFO 50. I mean, you literally play as the red UFO. If I don't beat this game, my video is essentially invalid, making me a poser who only pumped out a crappy video for views. I mean, how can you play UFO 50 and not even beat the poster child of the collection itself? I was not going to deal with the backlash of not beating this one, so I decided to power through and finish it for myself. And this one is daunting to beat, but I quite liked it, although I did rage a lot. At first, my anger was kind of ironic, and I wasn't being serious, but by the end of it, I genuinely got pissed off. It is very hard, even if you know what you're doing, and it certainly tests your patience. The controls for this one are very icky and take time to get used to. The physics also throw me off, and I never really got used to it. If you hit anything, you die. You can't hit a wall, a ceiling, a projectile. It gets so nerve-wracking. My hands get sweaty as hell whenever I play this, and for good reason too. There are 4 worlds, and after around the 3rd or 4th try, they get pretty easy, apart from a few BS obstacles in some of the levels. It may sound like a waste, but it's imperative to actively go out of your way to acquire lives. At my peak, I had almost 30 lives, and I beat the game with not even half of that. There are bosses at the end of each world, varying in difficulty of course. The only notable one is the cooking one, which is infuriating and I hate it. And the final boss, which is also infuriating and scary as hell to beat. I beat it first try though, with a lot of deaths. Again, there's not much to say here at all. Simple, but kind of frustrating. In the top 10 for sure, I can appreciate it for what it is, and this kind of sounded negative, but honestly really like this game. I wouldn't recommend you beat it if it's not your thing, but I liked it well enough. I hate golf. Every time my friends invite me to play golf or mini golf, many words are exchanged and a lot of tears are had. Despite my absolute hatred towards the sport, I love golf games, and I was super excited for this one. Mario Golf, Golf Story, and that weird golf minigame in Wario Land 3. I love all of those. So I would have loved this one, right? I mean, it was my most anticipated game when looking at the trailer for UFO 50. It's gonna be great, right? The only reason why I beat this game was so I could bitch about it without getting comments about how I can't judge it because I haven't beat it yet. This game is straight up just not fun. It's a golf Metroidvania with a ton of different areas to explore and abilities to unlock, and I liked none of it. After 30 minutes, it felt daunting, draining, and boring. The gameplay loop is dull. You get more strokes, explore areas, collect abilities, repeat. Maybe it's fun to some people. My friend liked it so much he cherried it. But for me, the entire time I was complaining and watching videos on accounting fraud because that was more interesting than giving my full attention to the game. Objectively, this isn't the worst game in the collection, but oh my god, I have to put it at the bottom. Not just so far, but for the rest of the video. genuinely. Each area feels boring and samey, especially the underground areas, which are where you'll be spending most of your time. It all blends together and the aesthetic remains the same with only slight variations. Exploring doesn't feel fun and quick, it feels daunting, tedious, sluggish, frustrating, boring. The final boss was a bore as well. I have nothing to say about this game, really. I want to fall asleep as I'm writing the script. Just stick to Mario Golf. This game isn't worth your time. Luckily, there's another golf game down the road that is much better. This one though, makes me shudder just at the mention of it. All of my footage for the big bell race comes from the YouTuber Video Game News. I accidentally cherried this one right before going to bed and I did not think to record it at all. It's only like 15 minutes and I don't even know the requirements to beat or cherry this one as I did it by complete accident. It has the same controls and physics as Campanella, but it's much easier as you're racing these other UFOs, which you can screw them over by the way, and it's really funny, I can't lie. A short one with lots of style and little substance, but that's not a bad thing. I really can't hate these arcadey ones as much as the longer games. If you don't like them or think they're only okay, you don't have to endure them for too long. This one I like though, and it's pretty cool. I was expecting to dislike Warptank, but I think it's alright. I wasn't a huge fan, but it was nice while it lasted. It didn't overstay its welcome at all. It's one of the most unique games I've played, just in general, and I can appreciate it for that. This is one of the earliest traditional side-scrollers on the list, with a world map and levels and bosses. I'd say it's a puzzle platformer, which I know earlier I said I don't like that combination at all, but I don't mind it here. It was relatively straightforward, and the challenge came more from precision than actually figuring stuff out. You just explore the space station and murder a bunch of these annoying ass enemies until you beat the game. It got kind of old after a while, but it was pretty short, so I didn't mind. There are also these different variations of tanks you can get, but as far as I know, they're purely cosmetic. I mean, I guess the pink one stops you from dying on these pink tiles when you try to teleport, but that's it. There were some challenging parts that made my brain hurt a little, but it wasn't even that bad. Not much to say. Pretty decent, but middle of the list. When I first opened Waldorf's Journey, I was dreading playing it. Man, I've said that about a lot of these games now. Wow. And yeah, the game was really freaking hard, then I realized I was playing it wrong. After like a few hours, I realized I could flap my flippers, and it became significantly easier. So I was basically playing the game on hard mode for like a while. That aside, God, what a mess. Unlike one that I'll be talking about in a minute, this one is frustrating in an annoying way. Look, it's not bad, I actually like this one. This might be hindsight speaking, but it was pretty fun. I wrote this part of the script right after playing it, so I'm a lot less harsh to it now than I was back when I first wrote this. But I still can't really defend the gameplay loop here. I wasn't really that into it, honestly. A lot of these games I can commend for not feeling repetitive despite being that in nature, but I just wanted to get over this one, man. You play as this sleeping walrus, jumping on platforms in his dreams to get to this door frame that eventually warrants his walrus pack. Wait, what do you call a pack of walruses? Let me find this on Google. What do you call a pack of walruses? A huddle, apparently. Okay, I'm going with that. He warns his huddle of visiting invaders. They look Spanish or maybe Dutch, I don't know. Despite the sort of serene atmosphere this game emanates, it's going to frustrate you. It controls weirdly, on purpose of course, and it has you launching from platform to platform while flapping your little walrus wings to not fall off and wake up. Things like the wind, these annoying things that will knock you off platforms, and flying squids will hinder you along the way. I always knew it was my fault whenever I messed up, but that doesn't make it any less annoying. It's actually quite short if you know what you're doing. I got to the end like 4 times, but died right before I could actually finish it. If you do it perfectly, the average playthrough is only like 90 seconds. Plus, I found this cool strat that just lets you fly above everything and get to the end super fast. There's a bit of RNG here with the item shop, and it kinda got annoying, but I dealt with it. I talked about this one for way too long given how little I really care about it, but it's not bad, just going near the bottom. Porgy is weird because I didn't dislike it, but I didn't have fun playing it and I wouldn't recommend it at all. This is another one of those games where I was dreading to play through it. But unlike Avianos, I was not wrong about how I'd feel towards this game. It was extremely boring and repetitive. It's basically just fetch quest, the game! You find upgrades, refill, find upgrades, refill again, rinse and repeat until you have enough fuel and weaponry to go to the final area and kick some ass. Well, not really. I never felt like I was getting stronger with my upgrades, which made it less satisfying to grab these modifications. There are these weird mini bosses that show up, but I felt no one tempted to kill them. They were more so just nuisances. I did get to the final area and almost got to the final boss, but I just couldn't pull through anymore. I figured I experienced enough of the game to know what it's about. I felt no one tempted to keep going, and I'm totally fine with that, honestly. Little substance and, dare I say, little style. I like the serene music though. That's about it. On to the next. I have a dysfunctional relationship with onion delivery. Its atmosphere is one of the best in the entire collection. I love the sprite work and the setting is so unique. It has that sort of dingy 80s New York type aesthetic, but with aliens. And you can obviously tell that this society doesn't function as it's supposed to, with constant chaos. I love extraterrestrial dystopias, where the biggest danger is just the citizens being dumbasses. It's such a specific niche, but I love seeing aliens being even more malfunctional than the average human society. And the music is great, I love it. Too bad the controls freaking suck. You get used to them after a while, but maneuvering can get really tricky. Of course, it's intentionally designed to be clunky, so I can appreciate it in that aspect, but it still gets frustrating. In onion delivery, you have to make 7 days delivering these onions around this chaotic alien city. Day 1 is pretty normal, and the only obstacles to note are cars and trying not to fall in the water. The rest of the days, it just throws random crap at you, and you just have to deal with it. This includes a giant onion monster, the garlic gang, a UFO, zombies, faulty pipes, and bad weather. Unironically, bad weather is easily the hardest one. You see, this game incentivizes you to go as fast as humanly possible while driving carefully. It's chaotic uniformity. Find the most organized ways to be as unorganized as possible. You're rewarded for driving fast by getting health regenerated, and there's also a time limit for each delivery. When you first play this game, you think that slow and steady wins the race, but once day 2 comes around, you're bombarded with all these chaotic projectiles that will seriously screw you over. They're not all that bad if you just drive at a good pace, but bad weather says, screw all that, we're gonna slow you down at every chance we get. So you keep slipping and sliding everywhere, losing momentum and crashing into everything. It's infuriating, I hate it with a passion. The rest aren't that bad though, once you get the hang of it. Honestly, one of my favorites. Even though I beat it, I always come back to it and vibe, just for the atmosphere. Man, you guys really must think I'm a dirty contrarian, huh? Don't worry, my opinions will only get more outrageous as the video goes on. Stay tuned if you want to get legitimately pissed off at my bad opinions. A lot of people don't like this one, but it's going near the top of the list. I love it personally. No, 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 no. No, I am not beating this one. For the love of God, I am not beating this one. This is easily the hardest game in the entire collection. Remember earlier when I said the games in this won't be nearly as hard as the games they're based on? This is the exception. It has 4 worlds, and if you run out of lives at any point in the game, you have to go back right to the beginning again. It is brutal, not just in difficulty, but regarding leeway with mistakes. I'm not going to talk about this one for that long because it's a side scroller shoot 'em up. It's decent. I don't really have any strong opinions on it. This video is getting really long, man. I can't yap about every single game for like 5 minutes. It's going near the bottom. It's decent, but I don't really, I have nothing to say about this, man. I'm not even reading off a script right now. I'm just talking. When I heard UFO 50 had an idle game, I assumed this was the game that they were referring to, but I was pleasantly surprised because this is so much better. I don't get around a lot when it comes to gaming, especially not for a game like this, so it may not be groundbreaking to a lot of you, but it is to me. This one might be a little bit hard to explain, so let me try. You try to throw the coolest, most badass, most radical party in the entire neighborhood by optimizing the composition of partygoers who appear. You can buy partygoers with cash and popularity points, and there are these liabilities who can get you busted by the cops or accidentally invite too many people and create a fire hazard, forcing you to skip a turn without any spoils. The spoils being popularity points and money being accumulated by the people at the party. You can buy partygoers to balance out other ones, accommodate existing ones, raise population, acquire cash, invite partygoers of your choice, or kick their asses out of there. There are around 5 levels, and a 6th one that randomizes partygoers. You have to get 4 stars by inviting these special guests to win. It sounds simple, but it requires a lot of strategy and precision, and RNG. Actually, a lot of RNG. I love the vibe for this one. It reminds me of those old mobile games I played on my phone as a kid. You know, before mobile games became absolute trash. And once again, the jingles are freaking amazing. I love them wholeheartedly. I don't have much to say about this one. It's cool and fun, and you should check it out. It's very addictive. It's around the higher parts of the middle of the list. It's really freaking good. Thanks Hotfoot for reminding me I have no friends. Thanks Hotfoot for reminding me that life is nothing but pain and suffering. Thanks Hotfoot for reminding me of my crippling depression. This game is about as fun as the average Action 52 game. Bottom of the list. Anyone, and I mean anyone who has touched UFO 50 knows why this goes at the bottom. Imagine Bushido Ball, but boring and frustrating and annoying and janky. Oh my god. Playing this without 2 players is genuinely janky and extremely unfun. Your teammate hardly participates, they just stand there and you have to multitask. So you have one brain dead teammate going against the AI who has 2 perfectly functioning party members. Then my brain dead teammate gets hit because it has no survival instinct. It's dumb and frustrating. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Please just move on, please. You know what? With how sort of negative I've been lately, you guys probably want me to rename this title to Guy Who Despises Video Games, ranks 50 games he's gonna whine about for an hour. Trust me, the whining will stop soon, I promise. Maybe. Watch more of the video and find out. I don't even know yet. The suspense is killing me, honestly. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be really negative for this one, but I wanted to like it. I mean, I really wanted to like it, but oh my god, what is this? I hate it when reviewers say stuff like, what were they thinking? Implying the game devs were stupid or incompetent, but I'm just gonna say it now. What were they thinking? Because I am genuinely curious about what they were trying to go for. This is an RPG where you need to dive down to the deepest depths of this underwater cave. And oh my gosh, it's so freaking grindy, man. Genuinely. As someone who loves RPGs, I have to tell you, not even the hardest NES RPGs are this grindy. The gameplay loop is extremely depressingly dull and repetitive. Kill a few enemies, go back to base and heal, freaking repeat 1,000 billion jillion times. I really don't want to give this one too much thought because it's not fun to discuss at all. I am really disappointed in this one, to be honest. I was really looking forward to this one when I saw it in the trailer. I don't really know how they managed to make both the RPG aspect and the exploration aspect of this one so freaking boring. People will call it a skill issue, but I really disagree. I played plenty brutally hard and slow RPGs like this one. Difference is, this has so little substance that I can't get into it at all. If I wanted to play a game like this, I just replay Final Fantasy Legend 2, which is miles better. Now that's a brutally hard game that's both tedious and entertaining. This game is a favorite within the community, and for good reason too. It's a Western style stealth game, which is a really unique setting for the genre. In terms of gameplay, it's really simple, but they managed to do a lot with it. Everything is so dynamic, and you really need to use your big brain to get things going. I'm not huge on stealth games, so I wasn't too immersed in this, but I could appreciate it for what it was. Enjoyed it more than I expected at least. Not my thing, but I'm honestly impressed with it and can acknowledge how well made it is. Metroid is a polarizing subject for me, man. Some days I freaking love the series, and other days I do not want to touch it at all. It's not due to the quality of the games themselves, but instead due to the way the games are structured. And Metroidvania is generally described as an action/adventure platformer with non-linear gameplay and utility-based progression. I just have to be in the mood to play these types of games. But luckily, I was definitely in the mood to play Vainger, because this is probably a top 10. This one is heavily inspired by Metroid. It could honestly be called a Metroid clone if it weren't for one thing: the gravity flip mechanic. It does what it sounds like, and I take it for granted, but design-wise, this is genius. It opens up so many new possibilities in different areas and makes it so each room can be explored multiple times. There are also abilities you can find, and it lets you mix and match them together to create the ultimate Vainger. I don't know if this thing's name is Vainger, but it'd be funny if I just pretended it was. Yeah, no, at first I wasn't super into this, but the gameplay loop for this one is so addictive. Especially since there are so many abilities scattered everywhere. There are 5 worlds in total. One of them acts as sort of a hub world / beginning area, while another one acts as the final area. One thing I do have to say is, unlike with the game Porgy, whenever I got an upgrade in Vainger, I did notice a difference. By the time I got to the end of the game, I was getting reckless and damage boosting through stuff because I was basically invincible. It literally fulfilled my power fantasy. There are bosses, unique enemies, and challenging layouts everywhere. Honestly, it's a legitimately full-fledged game, and I would 100% recommend it. The final boss is awesome too, and works in 3 phases. The first one being the hardest, and the last one being the easiest, ironically enough. Vainger is awesome, and is definitely worth your time. I explored literally every single room in the game, so that's how you know I loved it. Man, I should play Metroid after this. Rockgun Island is a tower defense game. Man, this collection really does have everything. You play as this caveman, and oh my gosh, there's a world map. You already know I love this game. You place other cavemen down to take down these dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals passing through. You can also place these campfires and cook chickens for meat, which meat is the mana system in this game and allows you to upgrade caveman units. There are 3 classes: Spearmen, Rocketmen, and Firemen. I don't know if that's what they're actually called, I just made that up. You can further upgrade them to be even more powerful. My personal favorite is the Wheel, who absolutely decimates enemies and is really effective early on in stages. The game can actually get pretty challenging, but I do wish it had more variety. Maybe I'm spoiled by Bloons tower defense, but there really aren't that many upgrades and paths. It can end up feeling really dull after a while if I'm being honest, but I still really like this game. I honestly think it could be a full game itself. Going near the top.
Now enter the force of your swing. You have entered Power Drive.
Another golf game this time, and it's not garbage. I repeat, it's not garbage. Okay, calling Golfaria garbage is kind of over the top, but you get what I mean. I really freaking love this one, and I'm also sorta terrible at it. I mean, I got first place, second try, but look at this gameplay, man. disgraceful. Now this is the golf I am more akin to, just traditional stages that will make you break your controller. The areas themselves are pretty unique, and the obstacles are something I've never seen before in any golf related thing ever. You can choose from a multitude of different characters, but as far as I know, they're purely cosmetic. I don't know, I only played as one person anyway, and it was this cyborg brain lady, because she looks badass. One thing making this different from other golf games is, well, it's 2D. Even in the NES days, golf games would try to replicate 3D environments with varying levels of success, and it's really rare to see them embrace 2D like this, so it's cool to see that here. Reminds me of Wario Land 3 Golf, and no, I will not stop bringing that game up. You can also hit the A button to slam your ball against the ground. It took me way too long to realize I could do this, and I played the entire thing in basically hard mode because I didn't know until later. After that, it stopped seeming impossible and was pretty cool. Going near the top, very enjoyable. Also, the aesthetic makes me nostalgic. I played way too many golf games as a kid, man. It explains a lot about myself. Mortal 2 is miles above Mortal in every single way. I adore the music, and the aesthetic here isn't completely dull. Plus, I like the variety with all the mortals. Yes, I'm referring to them as mortals that you can play as. The knight who turns into stone, the gunner who can shoot bullets and create reload stations, the bomber who can explode, the mechanic who can create pipes to travel through and throw wrenches, and the ninja who can create portals. All are equally as important, and it makes the gameplay feel really dynamic. There's so many routes you can take to beat the game, and my god, I am terrible at it. This one is awesome but absolutely baffles me. Despite how many routes there are to take, I have trouble getting to any of them. It's really fun and in-depth, but not much to say. It's more Mortal, but this time, enjoyable. I like it a lot, but don't have much to say about it. Fist Hell is easily the hardest game in the collection, which makes sense. The beat 'em ups were always the hardest on the NES. And yeah, this is extremely faithful to the stuff on the NES, definitely. Especially in the fact that it's hard as hell. You can choose 4 characters, all of which are equally as cool, and you can beat up zombies in the streets like a gangsta. Not only zombies, but also these weird chicken ladies, clowns, and these aliens. This one theoretically should be short, but I suck so much at these types of games that it took forever to get through this one. Can you blame me though? This game is hard. There are 5 stages, and even the first one can give you a lot of trouble. I liked how fleshed out these environments are. You can get this dog to help you, sometimes cars will drive through and run you over. There's a ton of items to use as well. And it's not super common to see beat 'em ups use their environments in cool ways like this. Oh, and each stage ends in a boss. It's pretty cool and I like it, but was very hard. Now this game reminds me of The Binding of Isaac if it took place in a single room. Okay, yeah, that's just a really convoluted way to call it a roguelike. It's a roguelike, and it's good. There are 8 rounds in this, and you have to kill these monsters in this area to win. This is actually a sequel to Velgress, with the same character and everything, so that's pretty cool. At first, this one seemed like a breeze, but then I got my ass kicked on the final round and realized I was doing something fundamentally wrong. You see, you can sort of bet on your own skill in this game by adding more enemies to each round. For each enemy you add, the more money you'll receive at the end of the round, being able to buy more upgrades. You really have to know your tolerance when doing this, and the phrase high risk, high reward has never had so much importance. You're as delicate as a flower in this game, and one wrong move can brutally end you. Just like in Velgress, I get tensed as hell playing this one. Bad news follows this lady everywhere she goes. You can upgrade stuff regarding your gun, being able to place landmines, spawning health capsules, and just making the environment easier to manage. It's very cool and I liked it, but the final boss is freaking terrifying. Oh my gosh, my hands are sweating bullets right now. Middle of the list. Honestly has less replay value than you would expect, and it gets kind of repetitive. Let's make this one quick. It's just more Campanella, but I can't complain because I really like Campanella. Unlike the first one, this one is way less arcadey. Instead, there are individual stages, and oh my gosh, this one feels so good to control. I don't know why, but it just feels so smooth. There are these 2D platformer / shooter segments, and the character here feels so smooth to control. It's all so satisfying. It's really not even that long, like you can beat it in less than an hour, honestly. Your main goal is to save the UFO mascot dude. You know, this guy right here. What I really like about this one is you can collect upgrades to improve your loadout. It kind of makes each playthrough unique in a way. Also, this final boss looks amazing. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I have no idea what I'm looking at, but just look at him. He looks so cool. 2D fighting game, let's go boys! Hyper Contender is great, but I also beat this one without footage, so screw me I guess. In fact, I actually beat a lot of these without footage. I forgot to record like a lot of them. It really sucks. Let's make this quick. Fighting game with multiple characters, all with different movesets and abilities. You fight them all in a tournament before fighting yourself at the end. Very poetic. You don't fight to kill each other, but instead to acquire these rings to reach a threshold. Once that threshold is reached, you win. I like how even with stuff like this, they cram in something to make it stand out from pre-existing things. I can really appreciate it a lot. Also, I love how different each character is. They're so varied. So much thought was put into each of their movesets. So yeah, Valbrace is a dungeon crawler / real-time RPG. It reminds me of those old PC games my dad would play with me as a kid, but actually somewhat playable. Anyway, yeah, I didn't like this one as much as I thought I would, honestly. I don't know, man, it just wasn't my thing. I really don't have much to say about it. The aesthetic is cool, the combat is unique, but I wasn't really immersed in it. Sorry that this section was so brief, I'm just not that enthusiastic about this one. My bad. I have to say, Rakshasa is amazing for the setting alone. You don't see a lot of games taking place in parts of India. There's a lot of material there, and I really believe it's underutilized in Western media, especially in video games. Anyway, this game is hard as fuck. This game is what I thought Barbuta would be. This is the Ghosts and Goblins type experience. Ironically enough, the controls for this one are actually more clunky than Barbuta. It's kind of weird because most of these games, apart from Barbuta, felt perfect control-wise. This and Barbuta are really the only platformers that feel as unwieldy as a bad NES game. And yes, I say a bad NES game, because from my experience, most NES platformers feel fine to control. This one is purposely clunky though, and very hard due to that. It reminds me of the running gun stages in Cuphead, but actually difficult. Yeah, my hot take of the day, I think Cuphead is an easy game. I will not concede on this. I don't know why I said hot take of the day. I have like 1,000 hot takes in this video. I am looking forward to reading these comments, let me tell you. I really love the aesthetic for this one though. There are a few enemy designs that feel genuinely unsettling, despite it only being pixel art. Apparently, this is also based on real Hindu mythology, which is pretty awesome. Every time you die, you get another chance to revive yourself by grabbing these rings. The more you die, the harder it is to revive. This adds a whole new layer to the experience that wasn't there before. There's also a timer, which you have to worry about, but it's not really an issue honestly. You can switch your attack loadout, but I generally use this auto aim thing because I have a massive skill issue. I'm going to be so real. Despite my efforts, I didn't really get that far into this one. Life has been pretty hectic lately, so I couldn't really pull through. I've just been kind of busy and exhausted, and this is just the one game where it kind of got in the way of all that. Despite that, I really love this one, and it's a standout game for me. It's not everyone's thing, but I'm definitely coming back to it after I finish this video, and can actually relax. I liked Star Waspir way more than I expected. I feel like I've said that for like a lot of these games now. It's kind of getting redundant. But it's true, I don't really care for top-down space shooters at all. The only time I'll willingly play them is at an arcade with friends or something. But this is really fun. I love how fast-paced it all is. It really gets my zoomer brain going. It's pretty short, but also very stressful and very hectic. Each wave is different, with 5 waves in total, the 5th wave having this badass humanoid bug boss at the end. Everything is so smooth. I genuinely love controlling this ship. Awesome game. Definitely up there. But the name of the game is really weird, like Star Waspir. What is that? What's a Waspir? I don't know what I'm talking about. Is that the ship? Is that the name of the ship? Okay, it's getting points taken off just for that name. Future Pixis speaking, it just came to my attention that it might be pronounced Star Waspir, which is really embarrassing for me. I've been speaking English for 18 years and I can't even pronounce basic things. Anyway, the name still sucks. I like Grimstone, but I'm kind of disappointed in it. If you're new to my channel, you must know that I'm an RPG addict, an RPG connoisseur, an RPG crackhead. So I had very high expectations for this one, but it was just good. Maybe my expectations were too high. It's a Western-themed RPG, which is really unique for the type of game that it is. I thought it would be turn-based, which yes, it kinda is, but you have to hit these markers to actually make hits land. The setting honestly wasn't that varied. It kinda had that dark, dry, arid feeling the entire game. It got a bit boring after a while, to be honest, and the combat, despite the game being modern, honestly feels more clunky than the classic Final Fantasy games. I can't really put my finger on it, but battles don't feel as good as they do in those games. Despite that, it's a freaking old school style RPG, of course I liked it a lot. I know my criticism sounded harsh, but after a few hours, you really go to freaking love this game. I still prefer the real retro RPGs, but damn, this is good too. Plus, the dungeon designs are awesome. They're not too confusing, but they're also complex enough to feel satisfying to navigate. Again though, the settings weren't all that varied, so I didn't feel too inclined to explore everything. In my head, I would often compare this to my favorite NES Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy III. It doesn't really compare in hindsight, but in my head, there were just these times where I'd say, man, FF3 just does this so much better. I know it's not exactly fair, but that's just how I felt playing it, especially since I'm also playing 3 at the time of making this video. 3 has the better setting, better fights, and honestly just a better atmosphere. It's just kind of indicative of why I like the actual retro RPGs as opposed to the ones that try to emulate them. It feels more authentic in those older games, whereas here, they're kind of just emulating it, so it's not really as good. This isn't really just an issue with Grimstone either. I played a lot of modern RPGs that try to replicate the style of those retro RPGs, and they're just not the same. Plus, with Grimstone in particular, I'm not crazy on the music. For me, the music is a make or break in an RPG. Some of my favorite RPGs of all time are so highly highly regarded to me just for the music alone. And if I hear music I love from a soundtrack, I will immediately pick the game up and play it for myself. The music in an RPG is such a vital part of the content of the game for me, so I was disappointed that I wasn't huge on it here. There were some tracks I liked, but none of them stand out. I know I sound really negative, but this is coming from a huge RPG fan. I still really like it, but it doesn't cater to my interests, which is okay. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Never mind, I just checked Reddit, and a lot of people couldn't get into this one. I'm in fact correct in everything I said, and you can't get mad at me in the comments. Let's move on. Lords of Diskonia is a very unique game. It reminds me of Attactics in a way. Don't ask me how it does, it just gives me those vibes, okay? You can purchase these different discs who all play a different role, and you go against an opponent in battles to see who can wipe out all the other person's discs. If your ass takes too long, this fog will start encroaching on the map and wipe out anyone in it if their turn ends in the fog. Outside of battles, there are these world maps where you purchase these discs and acquire materials. There's a strategy element in both aspects of this game, and the movement on the board is almost as important as movement in battles. Plus, I love how this game emphasizes skill over units. Some units are more valuable than others, although each has a distinct role that makes them favorable in certain environments. If you're truly good enough, you can just kick ass with anybody, and I really admire that. There's a lot of variety in the discs you can use, but I still freaking suck at it. My precision is, yeah, no, it's not good at all. Pretty freaking cool game. Night Manor freaking blew me away. My expectations were beyond exceeded. I don't play that many of these point and click type games. I used to play them as a kid, but haven't really done it since. So I was thoroughly surprised by this one. This game probably pays homage to something, but I definitely wouldn't know what that thing is. You see, it's a first person story game where you play as a lady who wakes up trapped in a mysterious mansion, and you have to find a way out. Everything here is so eerie. I didn't think I'd get scared by this one, but I genuinely did. This game has jump scares, and it's not crazy or anything, but it caught me super off guard and scared the hell out of me. Piecing together the story was also really freaking fun. There are letters and objects around here that tell you what kind of disjointed story, and you can piece it all together if you really desire. I sure did, and it was really satisfying. It's very subtle and not too in your face. Almost every item has multiple text descriptions when you analyze them, and I just had a lot of fun reading it. I refuse to spoil anything though. You need to experience this for yourself. The problem solving was fun, and uncovering what's going on was captivating. Top of the list, easily. I love this. Man, this makes me want to play more point and click games now. Pocky and Rocky. This game reminds me of Pocky and Rocky. And you know I love Pocky and Rocky. Actually, you don't know that because I've never talked about it before on this channel. Well, now you know. And you also know that I really like this game. And just like Pocky and Rocky, this game is kicking my ass 24/7. In a just society, Elfazar's hat would be charged with aggravated assault with how much it's absolutely decimating me. I'm not gonna lie, this game feels clunkier than I expected, but that's not a slight against it. It moves in 8 directions, but changing directions feels kinda slow, and movement isn't nearly as fast as it is in Pocky and Rocky. But enemy attacks and movements aren't nearly as fast as they are in that game either. It just took a little time to get used to. The music is bumping, the gameplay is awesome, and the difficulty, it's something. It is certainly something alright. It's definitely a skill issue on my part. I suck at these kinds of games. Also, this game has the best music in all of UFO 50. The music for the first level reminds me of those Korean mobile games I play as a kid. I don't know why I brought that up, but it just made me nostalgic. The art here is amazing, the environments are cool, and I love the different attacks that you have at your disposal. You can get different attacks and abilities by picking up these cards. It's pretty neat. Also, the final boss is impossible and scary as hell. Let's just move on. I don't want to look at this thing anymore. Now I realize that Pilot's Quest is the idle game people were referring to. Now I generally play these games in order. I made a few exceptions, but I just kind of went one by one when ranking these. But this game made me realize that was an awful, terrible idea. The game involves a lot of waiting, and if you aren't waiting, you're grinding, and if you aren't grinding, you're adventuring. And adventuring requires grinding, and grinding requires more waiting. Exploring in this is very scary. You can buy meat from this guy to go out and search for stuff. And if you get hit even once, a huge chunk of time is deducted from your quest timer. One meat equals 1 minute, and the time is very important when it comes to questing. I'm gonna be so honest, I kinda screwed up with this game. This was one of the last games I had to finish, and I do not have the time to wait around for a couple of days just to beat it. I mean, some do beat the game in 3 hours, but come on, do I look like a speedrunner to you? I'm very stupid. This guy played the game for 12 hours straight just to beat it. I'm sorry if it was a letdown, I would have done it differently if I knew. Can't really place it all that high without feeling a little guilty, so yeah. Middle of the list. I enjoyed what I saw, but I don't think I experienced enough to give it a full ranking. Mini and Max's game of the year. I love Mini and Max. This is the best UFO 50 game of all time. Mini and Max is a masterpiece. Ever since I knew this game existed, this is what I've been hearing on repeat. And yeah, it's pretty freaking great. It's a 2D platformer, but it's not level based. In fact, it's pseudo open world. You can shrink and grow in this closet, and depending on where you shrink or grow, that's where you'll be when you change sizes. Another innovative mechanic that I've never seen in anything. UFO 50 loves doing this. They could have made it just a unique 2D platformer, but they decided to go all out with this. It makes this honestly genius. The open-endedness of this reminds me of Wario Land 3. I mentioned Wario Land 3 again, please play it. There are a lot of settings to explore and NPCs to talk to. Everything here feels so alive. Lots of quests to complete, and you guys should know, I love doing side quests, so this was awesome for me. This game is huge, and it honestly feels like it'd be a whole standalone game itself. Like, I can see this being sold for $5 on Steam or something, but no, it's just plopped into this game, and it's a treat. I honestly want a sequel of this game. Also, the game starts with your sister locking you in a closet because she's too lazy to babysit. Yeah, no, this lady is a sociopath. That's not normal behavior. Going near the top, I buy UFO 50 just to solely play this game. Oh boy, Combatants is one of the games of all time. I will unabashedly say I only played 15 minutes of this and dropped it. No, I didn't just drop it. I drop kicked it into a pool of lava because I never want to touch this thing ever again. If you haven't played this game yet, don't get mad at me because you wouldn't understand. I was super excited for this one, despite the negativity I've seen thrown towards it. That's right, people freaking hate this one. Just go on Reddit or YouTube and look at what people have to say. It's not kind. It's gotten to the point where people contemplate whether this was designed poorly on purpose just due to how glaringly awful it is next to all the other games here. People have been asking for a patch of this game just to make it remotely playable. I was so ready to be a contrarian here and piss people off by saying some dumb thing like, Combatants is my second favorite game in UFO 50. I genuinely was planning on doing something like that, but this is the third lowest game on the list. I couldn't get past stage 3, which there are 12 stages. Stage 1 had me super excited, but I just lost all motivation after that. At first I was like, oh crap, this is clunky but really fun. Then I was like, oh crap, this is clunky and also really shit. It's an RTS where you play as this ant and collect Ps to create other ants and eventually beat the opposing team. You can create worker ants for 1 P and warrior ants for 2 Ps. Worker ants are useless and people have been wondering if they're coded wrong. You basically have to babysit them for them to do anything and it sucks. Warrior ants are also meh. Still have to babysit them and it's boring. Movement is slow, which I didn't mind, but the gameplay is so nothing that I started to hate it. I'm doing nothing very slowly so I can do another nothing very slowly so I can do another nothing very slowly and then lose at the end. Wow, great gameplay. There's barely any strategy involved either. It was freaking mind-numbing. It sucks that we're so close to the end of this video and I have such negative things to say about a game. I don't want to end on a sour note, so let's not dwell on this. Hey, the world map music is pretty good. I like it. If it even has world map music and I'm misremembering it, I don't know. I'm not playing this again. I'm not. I don't even care enough to check anyway. Let's just move the heck on. I love gambling with a passion. I love watching all my money disappear. I'm honestly surprised at how much potential this game has. It's a betting game where you bet on this thing called a quibble and watch them race. You can also place traps and obstacles to literally or figuratively trip them up and sabotage their chances. You can also raise your own quibble and create a super soldier to win every race for you. I obviously did the brainless strategy of betting the maximum amount every time and going wherever the wind took me. Hell, I lost everything at the end, but only won because the computer was even dumber and trapped themselves in mountains of debt. I won by proxy of not being the biggest dumbass in the room. A fun but short game. I would honestly like to see a full-fledged game made out of something like this. I would barter all of my money for it at least. Seaside Drive. A very unique game. You play as this car doing a cool cinematic seaside drive and shooting enemies. What's cool is that you actually reload your ammo by drifting. It gets kind of stressful having to drift and avoid stuff at the same time. It's another pretty short game with an awesome atmosphere and great music. Don't want to sound like a broken record at this point. Very freaking good. You're probably tired of me saying that by now. The very last Campanella game, and probably the worst one. Don't get me wrong, it's still very good, but I don't know, man. The other two were so good that I had very high expectations for this one. I mean, maybe Campanella 1 wasn't actually that good, and I just have Stockholm Syndrome. But come on, it's Campanella 1, how can you hate it? Campanella 3 is a huge departure from Campanella 1 and 2. In fact, this is the most unique UFO 50 game so far. It's this pseudo 3D space shooter, where you play as the iconic red UFO and shoot the hell out of these enemies. This one is very forgiving with deaths. When you die, you go to the beginning of a stage, and when you run out of lives, you restart all over again. That sounds standard, but most of these games just screw you over when you die, so this was a nice surprise. This one was pretty easy and pretty fun, but there's one thing I noticed. You know how there's 4 games with the UFO and pilot as a main character? Not counting Planet Zoldath because It's planet Zoldath. Well, this one ends with your UFO freaking crashing into another planet. So this leads me to believe that this is a prequel to Pilot's Quest. In fact, here's a timeline I laid out. First is Campanella, then Campanella 3, then Pilot's Quest, and lastly Campanella 2. There's a pretty big gap in between Pilot's Quest and Campanella 2, given the fact that in 2, the pilot is kinda sorta imprisoned in that one. It's just a dumb thing I thought of in like 5 minutes. Anyway, on to the last game. This is it, guys. A month of hard work finally coming to an end. Let's see if we can go out with a bang. Cyber Owls is 4 games wrapped in one large experience. Each playstyle is very unique, and each one wraps around each other in a cool way. A top-down stealth shooter, a 2.5D shoot-em-up, a side-scroller fighting game, and I don't even know what to call this. Looks like those vehicle stages from Battletoads, but actually not infuriating. They all connect, as you complete a series of missions in different settings around the world to take down these secret bases. The art is stunning, the game is decently challenging, the playstyles are unique, the music is awesome. This game has everything good about UFO 50 all in one. It's a jack of all trades, master of some. Emphasis on the some. The 2.5D shooter and vehicle sections were some of my favorites. Wasn't too crazy on the stealth aspect of the top-down one though. I mean, the stealth aspect isn't that overbearing, but I wasn't huge on it. I like going in guns a-blazing and lighting people up, you know? I love how everything connects. It really makes these owls feel like a well-functioning team. They managed to convey a lot of personality, despite us not really seeing them interact all that much. This one is going near the top, honestly. It has everything you could want in a UFO 50 game. Glad we could end with the bang. Or is it the end? This is technically the end of the video, but there's actually a 51st game, Miasma Tower, and oh my gosh, this gives me huge Petscop vibes. All I'll say is it shows us a glimpse into the collapse of the company that is UFOsoft and emits a really eerie, sad vibe. It delves into the harsh realities of working in the games industry, especially in the 80s, and it touches upon a very real issue that still persists to this day. After experiencing this game, it made the rest of the collection feel a lot more eerie. Kind of like I'm playing the last remnants of a now dead company. It's one of those things where explaining it honestly makes it worse than just experiencing it. So while I rank the games, you can just look at nice footage of the game and see it for yourself. I'll make sure to add the most important dialogue and plot points if you want to stitch things together. Anyway, let's rank these from worst to best, baby. It's great because I can just have B-roll footage of this game playing while I name these games off one by one with minimal editing. My laziness has absolutely no bounds and I have no shame in regarding that. Also, keep in mind, just because something is low on the list doesn't mean it's bad. Most of these games are fantastic, so even the low stuff I liked, just not as much. The ranking starts here. 50, Hotfoot. 49, Golfaria. 48, Combatants. 47, Divers. 46, Devilition. 45, Block Koala. 44, Porgy. 43, Planet Zoldath. 42, Mortol. 41, Bug Hunter. 40, Caramel. 39, Valbrace. 38, Waldorf's Journey. 37, Rail Heist. 36, Velgress. 35, Warptank. 34, Paint Chase. 33, The Big Bell Race. 32, Pilot's Quest. 31, Mortal 2. 30, Grimstone. 29, Quibble Race. 28, Bushido Ball. 27, Rock On Island. 26, Ninpek. 25, Lords of Diskonia. 24, Kit Club. 23, Mooncat. 22, Camouflage. 21, Campanella 3. 20, Overbold. 19, Fistel. 18, Pingolf. 17, Campanella 2. 16, Hyper Contender. 15, Rakshasa. 14, Star Waspir. 13, Seaside Drive. 12, Elfazar's Hat. 11, Cyber Owls. 10, Campanella. 9, Magic Garden. 8, Party House. 7, Minion Max. 6, Attactics. 5, Vainger. 4, Night Manor. 3, Barbuta. 2, Onion Delivery. And finally, number 1, Avianos. Also, if you'd like, here's a tier list I made to better visualize the ranking. Again, keep in mind that the stuff in D tier is still decent, just not my cup of tea. Anyway, I think we're done here. My brain has thoroughly been turned to mush by making this video. Like and subscribe for the sake of my sanity. I'm going to take a long ass nap. Wait, I have a 2-hour Earthbound video I have to edit and finish. Welp, I'm not sleeping until that's done. Workaholism is a disease, everybody. Peace the heck out, and thanks for watching until the end. Have a good day, or night, or evening, or something.